Case 1. The Early Domination, 2007 to 2008. When Roger Federer first encountered Juan Martín del Potro, it wasn't even close to a rivalry. It was target practice. Their initial meetings read like a masterclass in tennis hierarchy, with the Swiss maestro systematically dismantling the young Argentine across every surface imaginable. Wimbledon 2007 set the tone perfectly. Federer was hunting his 50th consecutive win on grass, riding an unprecedented wave of dominance at the All England Club. Across the net stood an 18-year-old from Tandil who wasn't supposed to trouble the king of grass. He didn't. 3 sets, barely a scratch on Federer's armor. The pattern continued relentlessly. Basel 2007 became a walk in the park for the Swiss. Madrid 2008 delivered another masterclass, with Del Potro's game unable to even rattle Roger's rhythm. It was absolute domination by the maestro. What made these early encounters so telling wasn't just the scorelines, but Del Potro's approach. He was playing not to lose rather than playing to win, showing the kind of reverence that champions exploit mercilessly. Federer had found what he thought was a new toy for his collection, another talented player who would consistently fold under pressure. But admiration has a way of curdling into something far more dangerous when mixed with pain and ambition, and Del Potro's education was just beginning. The public execution, Australian Open 2009. If their early meetings were systematic dismantling, then the Australian Open 2009 was something far more brutal, a public execution on tennis's biggest stage. This wasn't just another Federer victory, it was the most crushing defeat in their young rivalry, a scoreline so devastating it would echo through every future encounter. Del Potro arrived in Melbourne with genuine confidence for the first time. He'd just claimed a title in Auckland, his game was maturing, and he felt ready to test himself against the very best. But confidence means absolutely nothing when you're facing peak Federer in a Grand Slam. From the very first point, it was brutal. Federer unleashed every weapon in his arsenal. Drop shots that died at the net, slices that skidded impossibly low, half volleys that defied physics, net charges that suffocated rallies before they began. He even threw in a trick shot for good measure. The final scoreline told the story: 6-3, 6-0, 6-0. 13 games in a row, a double bagel on Rod Laver Arena, witnessed by thousands and broadcast to millions. It was tennis at its most merciless, a reminder that Grand Slam tennis separates pretenders from champions with surgical precision. Yet as Del Potro would later reveal, this wasn't even his most painful loss to Federer. That distinction belonged to something that would plant a very different kind of seed in the young Argentine's mind. The first crack, Roland Garros 2009. Everything changed on the red clay of Roland Garros. For the first time in their rivalry, Del Potro stepped onto a Grand Slam court with a completely different mindset. This wasn't the respectful kid who had been systematically dismantled. This was a warrior with one simple plan: attack. The context couldn't have been more perfect for drama. Rafael Nadal, the invincible king of clay, had just been stunned by Robin Soderling in the 4th round. Suddenly, the door to Federer's first French Open title was wide open, and everyone knew this semi-final was the real final. From the opening game, the Argentine came out blazing. Deep returns, heavy forehands, fearless aggression, it worked. For the first time in 6 meetings, Del Potro took a set off Roger Federer. The crowd at Court Philippe Chatrier held its breath as the impossible became reality. In the 3rd set, Del Potro unleashed a stunning passing shot to break Federer's serve for the first time in their rivalry. For the first time in years, Federer looked genuinely lost out there. Though Roger would ultimately prevail in 5 sets, completing his French Open dream, the damage was done. A seed had been planted in Del Potro's mind. He could hurt the maestro. The respectful admiration was curdling into something far more dangerous: belief. And in 3 months' time, that belief would explode onto tennis's biggest stage. The Epic Revenge, US Open, 2009 Final, Part 1. 3 months later in New York, it was time for the rematch that would define their rivalry forever. This was Federer's impregnable territory, 5 consecutive US Open titles, an empire that seemed untouchable. But Del Potro had arrived as a different player, having crushed Nadal in straight sets to reach his first Grand Slam final. Federer wanted no drama from the start. A pinpoint passing shot broke Del Potro immediately, and when he fired an ace to close the first set, Arthur Ashe Stadium felt like just another routine coronation. Early in the second, another break seemed to confirm the script. Then the momentum shifted in the most unexpected way. Down 1-2, Del Potro pushed Federer to deuce. Roger fired what looked like a clean ace, but Juan Martin protested. He wasn't ready. A ball kid had moved in his line of sight. The umpire ordered a replay. Federer, visibly annoyed, missed an easy shot but held anyway. At 5-4, serving for a 2-set lead, Federer looked ready to slam the door shut. Then Del Potro unleashed pure magic. A forehand down the line called out. He challenged. Hawkeye showed it had clipped the line by a hair. Break point. One more fearless forehand and suddenly the crowd erupted. The tiebreak turned brutal, and at 6-5, Del Potro attacked with a vicious cross-court forehand that Federer couldn't even touch. For the first time all evening, Federer looked genuinely rattled. The Meltdown, US Open, 2009 Final, Part 2. What happened next would haunt Federer for years. The third set exploded with tension as Del Potro struck first, breaking Federer in the 7th game. The maestro didn't panic. He broke straight back and stepped up to serve for the set at 5-4. But then came the moment that pushed Roger over the edge. Serving at advantage, Federer hit what looked like a clean second serve. Del Potro's return flew long, but seconds later, the Argentine challenged the serve itself. Federer unleashed his biggest outburst of the match, gesturing wildly as Hawkeye confirmed the serve was indeed out. The damage was done. Mentally rattled, Federer couldn't reset. The 4th set became pure theater. Del Potro's plan was crystal clear now: swing big or go home. The 4th set tiebreak began with Federer double faulting, handing Del Potro the mini break he needed. At 1-5, more drama unfolded when Federer challenged a serve called good. The replay showed it was barely out, but Del Potro won the replayed point anyway. Something fundamental had shifted in the dynamic. Del Potro had lost the respect for Federer that once froze him. He was no longer the admiring kid getting lessons from his idol. Case 6. The Coronation, US Open, 2009, Final, Part 3. The final set was pure mayhem and heart. Del Potro broke Federer in the opening game and never looked back, surging ahead with the kind of fearless aggression that had been missing in their early encounters. At 2-5, Federer, the king of New York, served to stay alive, showing flashes of his vintage brilliance to save 2 match points. But on the 3rd match point, after a double fault, it happened. Del Potro's forehand forced one final error, and a new king was crowned in Flushing Meadows. The kid who had once shown too much respect had just earned his first win over Federer in the most spectacular fashion possible. Arthur Ashe Stadium erupted as Del Potro collapsed to the court in disbelief. "I would have loved to win," Federer said afterward, his voice heavy with disappointment. "But I've had an unbelievable run here." For Del Potro, who had called beating Nadal the most beautiful moment in my life, there was only one response when asked how he felt now: much better. The rivalry had truly begun. That loss haunted Federer, but Del Potro's fire continued burning. At year's end, he even beat Federer at the ATP Finals. But then fate would intervene in the cruelest way possible. Case 7. The injury pause and psychological reset, 2010 to 2012. A wrist injury kept Del Potro off the tour for over 2 years, giving Federer time to process what had happened and prepare his response. When Del Potro finally returned in 2011, Federer was ready with a brutal reminder of who was boss. In Cincinnati, he brushed aside the Argentine 6-3, 7-5, showing no mercy and little emotion. But the real statement came at the 2012 Australian Open quarterfinals, the same venue where Federer had delivered that double bagel 3 years earlier. Federer still carrying that US Open scar. History repeated itself with brutal efficiency. Federer jumped out to an early 3-0 lead, moving freely and controlling every rally with the kind of precision that had made him legendary. Del Potro had no answer, no response, no fight. The final score, 6-4, 6-3, 6-2, was a one-sided beatdown that felt like a public reminder of natural order. They met again that season in Rotterdam, then twice more, all straight sets, 5 wins in a row, not a single set for Del Potro. His old nightmare was back, and it was worse than ever. The respectful kid who had briefly become a giant killer was being systematically reduced to size once again. But Del Potro's greatest explosion was still to come. The clay court explosion, Roland Garros 2012, Part 1. 3 years to the day after their epic clay battle, they clashed again in Paris. This time, Del Potro arrived with a different kind of desperation. He needed another turning point, another moment to prove he belonged in Federer's world. He came locked in, focused, and utterly fearless. Federer started slow, his serve faltering, his timing off. Del Potro pounced immediately, snatching 2 quick breaks to race ahead 4-1. He stormed through the first set 6-3, and suddenly the Roland Garros crowd was witnessing another potential upset. In the second set, Federer found a window and grabbed a break, but couldn't hold it. Frustration crept into his game as the rallies grew longer and heavier. Each point became a street fight, and at 6-6, the tension peaked in a tiebreak that would push Federer to his absolute breaking point. Del Potro unleashed a blistering forehand for the first mini-break, seizing control while Federer fought desperately to stay alive. Then came the moment that shattered Roger's composure completely. Trying to level the score at 5-5, he carved a deep slice that teetered on the line, floating in the air for what felt like an eternity. A spectator called out before the ball had even landed. Federer exploded. This was the moment that revealed just how much Del Potro's power game had gotten under his skin. Case 9, The Comeback King, Roland Garros 2012, Part 2. It's a particular moment, Federer would later explain. I hit a slice, it was floating for a long time, and this one lady just goes out. I was like, it's not out yet, it's gonna be in. And I ended up losing the point. I just got upset because it was a big point in the tiebreaker. That outburst, rare for the usually composed Swiss, revealed everything. Del Potro stayed ice cold, clinching the tiebreaker to lead 2-0, leaving Paris gasping in shock. But what happened next showcased exactly why Federer was considered the greatest competitor in tennis history. As if summoned by his desperation, a light drizzle began falling on court Philippe Chatrier. The soft rain slowed the court, neutralizing Del Potro's power advantage and giving Federer the opening he needed. From the third set's opening game, Roger struck with surgical precision. All I tried to do was make it as hard as possible for Juan Martin, Federer explained afterward. I tried to make it as physical as possible. The fourth set was even more dominant, a 6-0 bagel that felt like payback for all the frustration Del Potro had caused him. In the deciding fifth set, Federer's forehand roared back to its deadly best. He broke Del Potro's serve and stormed toward victory, completing his 7th career comeback from 2 sets down. It was a masterpiece of mental fortitude, but an even bigger statement about what Del Potro's power could do to him. Case 10, the Olympic Marathon, London 2012. Just weeks after that, Roland Garros epic, another battle loomed that would push both men to their absolute limits. The London Olympics semi-final on Wimbledon's grass, Federer's kingdom, where he just claimed his 7th title, became a direct fight for a medal that neither man would ever forget. Del Potro stunned Federer by stealing the first set 6-3, outplaying the grass court master on his own turf. The second set became a slugfest, both men trading heavy blows with everything on the line. In the tiebreak, Federer found himself on the brink, but held his nerve to level the match. What followed was tennis history in its purest form. The third set lasted 2.5 hours, longer than most entire matches. Neither man gave an inch, attacking and defending, bleeding for their flag, in a display of world-class tennis at its most brutal and beautiful. At 17-17, Federer finally broke through, but even serving for the match at 40-30 with match point, he botched a routine volley. Finally, mercifully, Federer sealed it 19-17, winning the longest match in Olympic history. I served against the match probably 10 times at least, he said afterward. We're human out there, we're not robots. That heartbreaking Olympic loss would give Del Potro wings, snapping his 7 straight defeats to Federer and launching him on his greatest revenge tour yet. Case 11, the Revenge Tour, Basel Finals 2012-2013. The Olympic heartbreak transformed Del Potro into something Federer had never faced before, a player with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. That loss gave him wings, and he used them to soar straight into Federer's home territory for the most satisfying revenge possible. Basel 2012. Federer's home tournament, his sanctuary, the place where Swiss crowds worshiped their tennis god. In a gripping final that went to a deciding set tiebreak, Del Potro finally broke through. The victory was sweet, but Federer's words afterward were even sweeter. Very close match. You deserved it. Case 12, the Warriors returned. US Open 2017. From 2014 to 2016, Del Potro faced no Federer. Instead, he battled his own body through multiple wrist surgeries, endless rehabilitation, and the terrifying fear that he might never be the same player again. Their rivalry paused, but the unfinished business remained burning in both men's hearts. When they finally met again at the 2017 Miami Masters, Federer won comfortably in straight sets. Strange because you know the opponent very well, Roger noted, but then when you don't play him for a while, you forget the tendencies. But 5 years since their last Grand Slam duel, they would clash again where it all began. The 2017 US Open quarterfinals. This was the one Federer had always wanted back. And who do you want a rematch with, he'd been asked years earlier. Maybe Del Potro, US Open final in 2009. Del Potro had been forced to reinvent his game after the surgeries. His forehand had become a missile. The match was a spectacle from the first set, with Del Potro taking it 7-5 after Federer double faulted at the worst possible moment. The third set tiebreak became an instant classic, with Del Potro erasing 2 Federer set points before sealing it with thunderous forehands that brought the crowd to its feet. Case 13, The Beautiful End, Indian Wells, 2018. Their final meeting was a fitting end to this beautiful rivalry, a battle that truly lived up to everything they had built together over the years. Indian Wells 2018 would be their last dance, though neither man knew it at the time. Del Potro dominated early with a rock-solid backhand, sealing the first set 6-4. In the second, Federer found a way to move the Argentine around, earning set points but unable to shut the door. The tension peaked in the second set tiebreak, where drama unfolded in the most fitting way possible. On his 5th set point, Federer served. Del Potro's return flew wide, and the crowd erupted, thinking the set was done. But Del Potro challenged, not the return, but the serve itself. Hawkeye showed it was out. Federer had to serve again for the set. Rattled by the controversy, Roger double faulted, from set point to match point for Del Potro in seconds. But Federer saved it, dug deep, and finally roared as he took the tiebreak 10-8, forcing a decider that would define their legacy. In the final set, locked at 4-all, Federer broke Del Potro's serve and stepped up to serve for the match. It looked over, but Del Potro saved 3 match points with stunning courage, leveling it at 5-5 with one final hammer forehand that Federer couldn't reach. So why did Federer lose his cool against Del Potro's firepower? The answer lies in something deeper than just tennis technique. Del Potro possessed the one quality that could consistently rattle the most composed champion in the sport's history: raw, relentless, untamed power that shattered Roger's rhythm and forced him out of his comfort zone.